Though per usual. What's going on, JB? Good to see you, man.
Good to see you too. It's we were just saying before we came on, it feels a little bit weird doing it on Tuesday night, but it's we gotta get the news through. We gotta talk about and get our takes out there. So
Yep.
here we are. Looks like we got people in the chat already, so it's gonna be a good time. Looking forward to it.
Absolutely. So yeah, this is still the continuation of Final Fantasy V, and so we will talk about Gilgamesh, who did come out. We're going to talk about Grand Arena, which is just wrapped up. We're going to talk about ExDeath, which is really the big news coming up this week, as well as some new vision cards that are coming out. Lunar New Year is getting a little bit of an update here, and then just some other character tweaks. Astrius, BoltAstrius, Light Veritas, and then our hot takes, which normally generate a bunch of good stuff. So. Yeah, anything else? Life's good, I hope, before we go full wotive. Anything good this weekend or no?
The usual, we got just gotta take my son around to his various activities and things like that. So we got snow out here in New England, so got some skiing going on, and yeah, it's been a good winter so far.
I love it. It has, yeah, been very, very kind winter to us. But yeah, we'll kick things off here with Gilgamesh now, who we do have a full week of some tinkering with. It has unfortunately been more limited Guild War oriented, where last like what 3 days we've had time to mock. It's been quite some time, and limited arena application. So I don't know if we've been able to really stress test Gilgamesh in the sense that we wanted to, because the Guild War effect, the limited Guild War effect, is element locked at the moment. So we have some ideas. We've gotten a feel. We've obviously stewed over him quite a fair bit. Anything now that you've actually had him in your account, been able to use him, takeaways or changes of heart, anything at all?
He's solid, like, and that's pretty much what we thought. Like, he has a lot of different areas that he can do well in. I don't think there's any really one area that I'd say that he's dominant in, but he's just, versatile. That's kind of what we liked about him. And in terms of kind of putting him through his paces this week and mocking and things like that, he is just a little bit squishier than I even expected. And I didn't really think he was going to be like the best bruiser out there, but if you can get to his barrier, then he really goes down quite easily.
Absolutely.
So, there's been times when Shrek has really done a huge number on him if she hits him first with her limit burst. Even like before I had really done any reincarnations or anything on him, she was able to one shot him. Uh, I mean, granted, that's a maxed out unit going against, maybe 20 reinks at the time, but um, still not great when you think about ExDeath coming in now and ExDeath's vision card and that sort of black mage team powering up. That doesn't make me feel super good about what he can do, but we'll see. Pairing him maybe with Ramada can maybe help that a little bit, but we'll see how it pans out.
Totally. No, I agree. And just real quick to Steven, is he usable without his vision card? I would say yes. I think there's other
Yeah,
pierced vision cards. I don't think that it's technically a damage increase for him compared to the alternatives, but I don't think he's requirement to have that vision card. But I do. Oh, good.
I was going to say I think in many of the teams I've actually not used it or used it as a sub card just because right now accuracy is kind of at a premium. So I've if you have like Fang's vision card, and can
Yep.
combine that with like the Venera vision card, like that's really where you can really double down on luck and accuracy at the same time. So that's kind of what I've been doing for those evade matchups.
Totally. Agreed. And yeah, to your note on him being a little squishier, that was one of my takeaways too, absolutely. And I noticed it immediately, not only in that Shreka matchup, but when I was doing the stress test versus the evade teams, Venera has a pretty reliable barrier break. And so the first team that I went into that with was Gilgamesh and Ramada and Lucille, going for like a hasted, and Staff Devout has some great overlap with Pierce. So that to me was like, great starting team. And very quickly, I realized that if you don't protect that barrier, he has some issues, which I have now swapped to Summer Resnick to fill that support role for them. And because she grants that barrier seal on hit, I've been able to more reliably seal that barrier. It's still not, perfect. Obviously, seals always have a little bit of back and forth, but yeah, he was getting hit a lot earlier, and even with like some of the chain resistance that you have on some of the vision cards against the evasion girls, he was still taking an absolute beating. And he, if you get that courage removed as well, because again, he doesn't have the longest range in the world, I was finding that there were opportunities for him to get decimated pretty quickly. That being said, I think we've kind of found a happy medium that now I think his durability is fine, given that Summer Resnick is there, but obviously that's a unit just kind of propping him up. But he absolutely is solid. I've been stress testing some of the damage thresholds, and he does do a fair amount of damage against like some of the current general meta. Maybe not all the units equally, but it's certainly there. And yeah, absolutely solid unit. We've ironically noticed a lot of chatter at the top end of the game and seemingly a pretty high adoption rate of him, more so than I think we anticipated. And I think we're both still kind of like of the consensus that if you guys see more Gilgamesh kind of floating around the top end, I think it's likely more him just being used as a chess piece because of how versatile he is and like some of the matchups, more so than like the fact that he's like a meta unit and just how strong he is. I think there's a lot of like complex factors that might be going into why we're seeing people kind of like pull on him and adopt him as early as they have without actually being correlated to like his power level, if you know what I mean.
I think one thing for me too is the limit burst. Like that's his only barrier break. So, it's he can get his damage shut down like fairly easily, if somebody if he either uses that maybe on the wrong units and doesn't maybe he uses that on Exia and then doesn't have a barrier break for Sodali. The lack of dispel is also another problem for him, which pairing him with Sephiroth can kind of help out.
Yep.
Get rid of all those buffs that might be shutting down some of his damage. If you can kind of build him around him and get the right pieces with him, I think that his damage can be very strong. It's just you need to kind of factor that into some of the team building, I think, and who's going to partner up with him to give him the things that he needs.
Totally. And that was one of the first lessons I quickly got when I was testing with him. I went into it mistakenly kind of thinking like, oh, he's going to be relatively good against everything. And he can be, but not all at once. If you tailor him to be good against certain specific things, I think he can. If you want to make him super high accuracy, you can. If you want to make him big time damage, you can. Good against magic, you can. But I just don't know if you can do all of them adequately at the same level. There's always going to be those trade-offs of where you have to take one from the other, but not every unit can do all of those things potentially. I think that's kind of a nice wrinkle for him as a tool. And for theory crafting, that's obviously what we love too, because it means you can make that unit be what you can mold them to be whatever you want. So I currently have him max reincarnated. That's purely because I'm a spear bias. I love that group. I was prepping for this, and it's been a lot of fun using him. But it's not without holes. The quick pick matches already. I've already dropped my spear team because in quick pick that team was just like not doing well, and even in arena right now this week he's fine, but not overpowering, but it's fine. He's still
not
good.
Dominant.
Yeah.
Cecil in the chat says he's supposed to be decent against ExDeath, so probably an anti-FOMO pick. That's kind of what I had heard, like, as the word on the street from JP, and I've honestly, like, from motive stats, I've seen those kind of results, where he is doing well against that team. I don't know if I fully buy it yet myself, just seeing like how much damage Shrek has been able to do to him this week. Especially with the new card and like a great partner coming in. I'm not completely sold on it, but we'll see. I mean, the proof is in the pudding once we actually are able to put him through his paces against ExDeath and Shrek.
Yeah, no, I've seen that infographic kind of floating around, how there's this like circle, rock paper scissors, that ExDeath beats Mont and Mont beats Gilgamesh and Gilgamesh beats ExDeath, but I think that oversimplifies it just a smidge too much.
Yeah, I've seen that as well, and that's where I'm not fully sold on that quite yet. I don't know if I fully buy that.
Yep, no, totally. I am also in agreement of that, but we obviously will pick that apart once we see that live this week. We're not going to be able to stress test it in Guild War quite yet, but it is coming, and so we'll at least be ready to kind of see it more in person. But yeah, that's all I wanted to say about Gilgamesh. I'm impressed. I'm happy as a Spear fan. I'm happy. It seems that a lot of people are excited to use him. I just don't know how widely oppressive he'll be. I don't think that's the right word for it. I think it'll more just be like a really solid tool that can get some results for you.
Yeah, I kind of think of him similarly to Crimson Wizard, who, we had similar thoughts about. Like, this is a nice unit. It's going to be a nice to have maybe in certain matchups, and he's turned out to be that against the Jadens and Agriuses of the world. So I can see I see a little bit more versatility for Gilgamesh. So maybe there'll be more cases to use him.
Yeah, actually, that's a high compliment. I admittedly think Crimson Wizard might be more impressive than Gilgamesh right now in terms of like how he stacks up, because Crimson Wizard can still to this day like one tap a handful of some of those meta units, and I didn't get that initial pop with Gilgamesh, but no, that's a great comparison. It's a unit that is absolutely solid, but it's just not going to take over the game. But no, we'll keep moving on here. We did conclude Grand Arena, and let me get a little drum roll here. Congratulations, you came in second place, right, out of everybody in Grand Arena this week.
Yeah.
Do you want to give us the rundown of like what you did, what you saw? Did you like it? Really, everything.
So I mean, flashing back to last week when we were kind of previewing it, I said I wasn't really going to go hard on it, and that's honestly was my mindset the first day. I didn't really go into it thinking I'm going to try to compete for the top end. So really, like, I may have had like a shot at first place if I had done better on the first day. I think I was like maybe, I want to say like 15 or 18, somewhere in that range after the first day. And then when I booted it up the second day, I was like, okay, I'm kind of getting into a little bit the team building here, and it just kind of took off from there, where I started theory crafting against some of the teams I was seeing and trying to maximize how much points I would get. And it was kind of fun to do that with an evade team, which is what I had mostly ran the whole time, because you can very easily calculate if your team is going to get hit or not.
Bingo.
So that's basically what I did. And of course, it unfortunately there ends up being some RNG, like when people go behind you or to the side, and you can't always, know when exactly that's going to happen. So you do end up dropping some points along the way. But by and large, I think I averaged maybe like 790 something, for the week.
Love it.
Congrats though to Leold from Hokuten, who's now a two-time champion of Grand Arena. He won it last time. He won it again this time.
Awesome.
Unfortunately, he just was able to outdo me just a little bit, partly because of that first day, and then even on a day-to-day basis, he was putting up some more points than I was. So he, I think, had the advantage that he was playing in that first window as well, where I think if you were getting in there early, you could kind of pick on some certain matchups, and he was able to do that to win again. So hats off to him, though. He's a great player, two-time winner. So
What was the team specifically you were using?
I was using the evade girls. I was using Riku and Venera, and I was actually using Lucio with them, Halloween Lucio.
Oh,
So rather than bringing in like so you have to have like a 70 cost unit because it was a
right.
270 cost, and all of like the sub cards were fitting for him. And the compression on the evasion cards allows me to use his card in the third slot. I just dropped a little bit of offense. So that's what I did. And then
Cool.
I added accuracy to the team. So
Yes.
instead of weapons, I was using Alex rings.
Yep.
And then on Lucio, I did also use Sephiroth's TMR, which is haste and 30 accuracy.
Nice.
So between that and like his guaranteed hit, I was able to hit fairly reliably. So
I love it. Yeah, no, the top 50 and 100 was predominantly the evasion girls. I ran the same, and I kind of had a similar story. The first couple days, I was really casual. Like I threw in shadow links, like dark MR, and I was just like messing around. And very quickly, I realized that this Grand Arena, there really was like a best in slot team of sorts and was the evade girls mainly, that they seemingly dominated more consistently than the Thancred orating teams. Those teams I could abuse pretty frequently. And yeah, I had to say, I took it easy. And then finally, that last day, there were a couple teams where I was just max pointing like every day in a row. I wouldn't have been able to do that to the top spot, but I kicking myself, I could have made top 50 pretty easily, but I was running the Venera, Riku, and Shal's team, which is very popular, that third support. And it was great. Locked TMR and same idea. Dropped the weapons for the Alex rings. There were a couple teams that you could tell immediately that they weren't going to be high enough accuracy to hit you, and that's, I think, the easiest way I've ever gotten max points in this mode. That's always been something that I've struggled with. Like, how can you actually get a team that can hit max points? In order to do that, you need to take no damage by the end of the fight. You need to be full health, and that was always a struggle for me. But when you can't get hit at all, and you just don't get hit at all, it's pretty easy to maintain that full health pool.
That was a little bit my team was a little bit different, I think, than I saw a lot of what other people were running, because I brought in Lucio as kind of the third damage dealer.
Definitely.
And him having like the HP barrier, like if he took like a stray hit or something, it wasn't going to take any damage. So I found that as one advantage that I had. The other interesting wrinkle was like there's obviously 100% hits that you need to watch out for, including on Riku, who has one in her monk sub job. So that was kind of part of the analysis when you're going in trying to get max points. Who has 100% hits and are they going to be a threat?
Yep.
And maybe don't take those matchups if they have it equipped. And that was kind of all part of my thought process.
Totally. And I did like it this time. I think shortening it to the 3 or the 2 refreshes, technically, you got to refresh twice, I thought was adequate. I did like the 3v3. Obviously, 5v5 is fun, but there is a lot more chaos in that too, that it's a little harder to really like formulate a perfect team and really analyze ahead of time. We're obviously more versed with 3v3, so I like that. But I would love to see 5v5 again with just some reduced loading times potentially, if that's possible. But I did like the map effector too, to kind of mitigate the resistances, where I thought that was a nice equalizer. That's one of the things from 5v5. I saw so many people just making a mono element team, and you just farm and ran. There's no strategy at that point, which to me, it's just a game of play and skip and play and skip and play and skip, and that's not how you should play this game.
Yeah, I think we saw potential for this mode last time, but we went through the laundry list of issues we had with it. I was happy to see that right on the next one that they put out here, what is it, like 4 or 5 weeks later, they addressed most of those issues, so they were kind of aware of those problems and fixed them right away. I was very happy with this mode this time around. I thought it was a lot of fun, and that was part of the reason why I went hard on it this time.
Totally. And I think you were able to +6 the weapon. I mean, the accessory. Were you able to? Yeah. So I'm close. I'm 20 recipes off. I'm kicking myself, but it looks like you already put it to some good use, I think. I want to talk about that?
I did. So the scope or whatever, I can't remember the name, but the Bejeweled scope, I think.
Yeah.
But it's essentially like another accuracy item. It was at the top. You went by it.
Of course I did. Oh, here it is. Yep.
There it is. So it's essentially like pretty similar to an Alex ring, where you got 22 accuracy, and then you got 20 in the base stat there as well. So I'm using this. I've been using it on Gilgamesh actually, because I found that was another hole in his kit, was his AP issues, where he'll launch his limit burst and maybe 1 or 2 attacks, and then he's pretty much tapped on AP. I found that in like longer sustained fights, he'll be auto attacking, towards the end of the fight. So I found, getting another 20 AP, during his buffs sequence made the difference. So I've been using it on him.
Yeah, no, that's something that I'm eagerly waiting to be able to test the same. I was joking with him. Like, I think we just got spoiled with how many units that had AP regen in their own kit, how many units have been magic users, so we haven't had to think about AP from them. And Gilgamesh is kind of one of those units, even though on paper I thought he'd be pretty decent with his weapon having the reduced AP cost. He gets a fair amount of TP, fair amount of AP from his teammate TP buff that, mathematically, I thought it'd be okay, but you're right. By the end of the fight, he was in single digits AP for me, and this is probably one of the first times I've thought this accessory really does have a really good time and place.
Yeah, I mean, especially where you kind of need to cover your accuracy, this is a nice alternative to your Marshmallow or your Alex Ring, and it can fit that, different niche of giving you a bit more AP if you need it.
Absolutely can. Totally. But no, that was the last week of content. We do have some exciting stuff coming this week though with ExDeath, which I imagine is probably what most people are looking forward to out of this collaboration overall. There's been a lot of hype for this unit, and I think a lot of it's warranted. So much so that JP is kind of already one step ahead with Mavia in terms of what she can do. That I think even the creators knew how good this was for a variety of reasons, and the game has already tried to start to stymie a little bit of how impressive this unit could be in conjunction with Shreka and his Vision card and what exists for that grouping. But we did talk about him obviously a couple weeks ago, but we'll go through it again here now. I'll kick things off super high level. He is
Sure.
a bulkier magic damage dealer. He's again obviously 100 cost unit, dark element. He's bulky in the sense that he does rely a lot on the all element res. This is something that he also has on his weapon, so he can start off innately like non dispellable, non buffable at a pretty decent all element res perspective. But even then, obviously his health pool is super high. He's got the re-raise and the re-raise seal. His teammate buff here is a nice 50% general barrier with a fair amount of unit res here and the regen here as well. It sounds small, but it does kind of like add up over time, particularly if you have another support in there to kind of throw in the healing. And he does have a fair amount of offensive firepower to go with that. He's another select two type of unit, synergizes really well with Shreka, has some fun status effects on here between Doom on one ability and Poison on another. He, interestingly, I thought, has a couple different ways to remove Shell 2.0. Not only is it on his limit break, but he also has it here on his 120 ability, which is a triple hit. So I mean, you don't get those magic chains, but kind of cool. I know a lot of people like to still use Wrath, some of those dark units. That when you talk about the elemental extension, this is something that those dark stands always look for, and he is a unit that technically checks that box. But yeah, really great firepower overall. A couple of these are non-elemental hits. This limit break is, and then I believe, yeah, his lowest AP ability also is, which will bypass all the element rest. So there's a lot of good things to like about this unit, just self-contained within the kit.
Yeah, I mean, I think that's what, at a high level, I kind of see a lot of similarities in like how his bulk is formed, with Sottily, where he's got a 50%, four hit barrier, all damage. He's got the all element resistance, and he's got a ton of HP. He's got, basically about the same amount of HP as Sottily. So, and we've seen how high that unit gets up in like, 14, 15K. So
Can I just pause?
yeah,
I just realized it's also buffable. You can buff another 15% all element res
right.
in addition to just the passive and the weapon. Yeah.
Yeah. So, it's going to be a hard unit to take down for, the vast majority of units out there. He's not invincible. If you are able to break the barrier, that's obviously the key way to get to him. Um, he's not an AoE attacker like Sottily though. He's a select two, just like Shrek. Innately, I think that his penetrations are a little bit light, where he just gets some unit res 40, and then you can bring in the spirit penetration as well. That's optional though. I think in a lot of cases you are going to use that for the accuracy, but it does make him maybe a little bit on the sluggish side because he doesn't have the agility passive.
Yep.
So that's something to consider. But yeah, I think that he's pretty well rounded in terms of his mitigations, and yeah, I think he's going to be a force to reckon with.
I agree. And one thing I do think is worth calling out too, to reemphasize just how amazing this TMR is. This is one that we genuinely like. We like seeing the 5 agility on it. It's an accessory, equipable by most units in the game. It's not, locked to armor units only or anything. It's an accessory. But yeah, you have the reduction of physical and magic damage, 25% for 2 hits. There is the move +1, which you do have to count for in certain kinds of maps, but you get the 25% agility too. This is a great, excellent new new like gen TMR that I think there's a lot of tanks that could really benefit from this. I think of someone even like Agrius, where you're typically trying to find a really good like second buff for them. Even someone like Summer Glaciella. Kind of interesting to think about some of these older tanks where some of their buffs haven't aged as well. I think this is a really like premier TMR to consider. Obviously, a lot more applications than just that, but yeah, this popped out to us.
I love that anybody can use this, and you still got the 2 casts on there, and
Yep.
yeah, this is one of the better TMRs we've seen in quite a while. I think just for getting those 2 unique effects. Of course, we saw Gilgamesh's TMR last week was the first one with the physical damage reduction effect.
Yep.
But this one's giving you both, just limited to the 2 hits, but still, there's still, it's getting more common to remove those effects nowadays, but it's, there's a lot of units that don't have it that are still actively used. So I think there's going to be a lot of pockets where this can be quite good. Just kind of going back to the bulk of this unit, the another kind of X factor is the weapon with the not only the all element resistance but the physical damage reduction as well of 8%.
Yep.
He's got 15% magical reduction in his mastery too, so
Yep.
you can't break his CT, which is huge on that weapon.
Yep.
And Black Mage has access to a vision card, Oldoa's card, which you could put maybe on Shrek or something, and avoid getting CT broken on both of your damage dealers. So, yeah, there's a lot of good stuff that you can do, I think, with this unit and the team.
I agree. And actually, just one quick thing on the TMR here. To your point about this being removed, I do agree. There are more ways to do it, but this is one I haven't looked at it close enough, but it's one that I noticed with like Sephiroth with the AoE wide res conversation in terms of how over time some of the introduction of these mitigations have changed the AI of certain units. I think this is one that even if it's dispellable by more and more units, I do want to observe how it might change their AI priority. Like where maybe you're used to seeing come out with a certain kind of attack, and now all of a sudden you have this TMR active and maybe they do a different attack instead. I think this is one of those things that I personally will be looking to see potential trickle-down effects just to see if it does a skew which abilities certain units use, because if all of a sudden units aren't using their strongest abilities because they're trying to wipe away this mitigation instead, that itself does have some intrinsic value.
Speaking of that, ExDeath himself does have the ability to remove magical reduction on his Job 25.
Drop 25 and his limit break, both. He's got
and
both.
His limit break, yeah. So nice utility there for him to be able to do that.
I did want to talk someone who, oh my god, who was it that just said it? Yeah, Andarius, oh my god, Ephraim. He has this typeless Earth ability here. I don't remember my Final Fantasy V lore enough. I'm so intrigued why this is here though. That is a good call out. It is unique. It is interesting. I don't remember why though.
Earthquake.
Was that a main ability of his in the game?
That's like one of the classic spells in for mages in Final Fantasy.
Interesting.
You can't. Anybody who's floating won't get hit by the quake spells.
Yep.
Which I think Renoa actually has a quake spell too that might have that as well.
Yes, she does. She does. But the last thing I at least personally wanted to touch upon was the commander ability. I think this is the other thing, and I've said this before, that meta aside, maybe Mavia does come in, and a lot of people pull her, and we see ExDeath go the way out of the meta pretty quickly. I think this is still a really nice commander effect because this is Guild War oriented. Those of you, it's not apparent on Vote of Calc. We will hopefully get Bismarck to update this to mention the type, but this does have some great benefits for Sword Warrior, Great Sword, and although Staff Black Mage is there, and you probably wouldn't use Staff Black Mage without him, but you could. This is a great commander ability, I think, for these two classes, where Sword Warrior and Greatsword are bulkier overall, that he does add to them the extra HP, 15% HP, but then the ability is also healing power up and regen as well. So there is some like added sustain for free for some of these bulkier units, in addition just to the blind res and the AoE pen for free. So I do like this commander ability for Guild War. That alone, I think, is kind of a premium for looking at these units.
The area resist penetration of 10 is what really kind of opens my eyes a bit, especially when we think about like Mont's vision card that we should be seeing probably next week, which has like a 20 area resist pen bestowed. That you can throw that on Cloud and have this as the commander effect. Now he's at like 90% area res pen on his cross slash.
Yep.
That's pretty disgusting.
It is. It's one of the reasons why when I still look at area res favorably, but it's not a slam dunk anymore when I'm building teams. It really is like matchup specific for which units can ignore it. Um, yeah.
It's definitely gotten hammered way more than unit res has.
Yes.
But it's generally been, I think, more abundant on more units. So I think that's how they're kind of playing it.
Yeah. Absolutely. Um, we'll get back to Oh yeah, Shogun. Real quick question here. That pairing ExDeath with Oldoa, Ice Oldoa, is technically staff black mage the tank. Would that help him get bulkier versus physical teams? I mean, I don't hate that pairing. Yeah, I like that. I mean, I don't know if it's the best team that'll beat absolutely everything, but that aura and what she brings for the status element resistances, and I even think hers is a CT nullification aura. So you might be able to. Wasn't it hers? I think that you might be able to drop his
I
weapon.
think so, yeah.
Yeah, that if that's a thing that you're worried about the CT down, that's another X factor that you can get it a different way. I like that team. Yeah.
I think especially when you think about Oldoa maybe getting some upgrades here in the
Yeah.
next month or two, maybe a couple of months. If she gets like an LB upgrade or a Mastery 2, like we have seen recently with Astrius, then I think that then that team could be pretty scary.
Totally great. But yeah, I don't think I have anything else to add. This is a really solid unit that I think is probably a great pull for most people. Again, not only for the TMR, not only for the commander, but I think for most people that have Shreka already, this is not a huge lift to add him into that team. And you can still use a variety of other units where you could still use them with a support. Hell, I still like the Lemuray pick, that good old fashioned haste and quicken strategy, maybe, or go with a unit like Oldoa. There's a large variety of teams that you could probably still make with them that I think he's a easy addition for anyone that's already using her.
The one, if we're looking for holes to pick in this unit, I would say that it is his magic res penetration, where you can see here none in the mastery, none in his passive abilities, none on his weapon. He only has a buff for it here of 30.
Wait,
So
can we pause? Can we segue? This is a good segue. Can I steal this from you?
yeah, that's what I was going to say.
Okay,
As we
never
kind of
mind.
go into the next part here
Please continue
of
then.
his vision. So I think it makes him beholden. If you're going to pull this unit, I think that you have to get this vision card here that we're going to look at right now.
Yes, agreed. And this vision card is quite the doozy. This might be like the vision card of the well, it's definitely the vision card of the year, given 4 weeks of January. But
Yeah.
but even last year, this is a top contender for I think maybe one of the best vision cards they've ever come out with, and it is not only 3 agility and 17 luck on the base stats; those are nice little premium gimmies. But 10 unit res, certainly nice for the bestowed effect. But the party effect here is 42% magic res pen. That's the highest penetration they've ever put on a vision card. It's 16% crit evade, 20% area res, and for Guild War, it's the 24% reaction block rate for Great Sword, Sword Warrior, and Staff Black Mage. This is an absolutely stacked vision card. I mean, not. I think everyone in chat can see that without us even analyzing it.
I think that the developers realized that as well when they were giving the limited bestowed for ExDeath, where they're just giving him a magic attack bestowed, which is probably going to be like 20 magic attack or something, which is fine. But it's, when you're looking at those limited bestows, those are generally the weaker that you can get.
Yep.
But yeah, like top to bottom, this card it's hitting a home run no matter which way you look at it. The base stats with the agility, the luck, the unit res, and then just every stat there is absolutely top tier, for what you want kind of combined in a vision card.
Yep.
It pushes the VV card out of the main slot. I think that's how good it is.
I agree with that.
So this one, I think is also, I really like it for extending the overlap between Black Mage and the other two classes, both Warrior and Greatsword, which they already have, a few nice cards already with I think mostly agility cards at the moment, but you're going to be able to make some nice teams with Mont or with Dark Veritas, Seifer.
Yes.
There's a bunch of nice units there that you can, even if you look beyond Shrek, I think there's some other nice teams that you can start putting together.
Absolutely, Ken. No, totally agreed. And I think particularly for some of the tankier units, like again, you even look at someone like Mont who's on this card, or even some of the great sword units, who I think are typically more of the bulkier style. Just the fact that you can get something with crit evade, area res, and even the reaction block rate for all these slash type units. That reaction block's important in the game, but it is most important at the moment for the slash type units, because most of the counter abilities that are at that 70% threshold are on slash type damage. So when you talk about like combining some of the rainbow teams with the different classes, even though a lot of these units may not get a full value out of the magic res pen, just the fact that they're getting the bulkier stats in the main slot and the reaction block right there, I think is it's awesome. It's great.
Yeah, it's useful for the entire party, but just especially useful for those mages.
Yep. Nope, absolutely. But I don't have a ton else to really pick apart here at the moment. I know we are going to continue to talk about this at a point later in the Leonis support, but any other lasting thoughts here before we kind of keep going here?
Yeah, so just to kind of cap off that point that I was making as we were kind of transitioning from ExDeath into the card. So this giving that 42% magic res pen, it does bring him to, I think, that competitive level in terms of his magic res pen. With a trust stone passive, he'll be at 50%. With his buff, 80%. So it essentially, factoring all that in, Shrek, obviously, she's going to be able to get to 90 plus. She already has, access to 50% right now. So,
Yes. Yes.
so yeah, that team is really not going to be all that worried about magic resistance, if you have this vision card.
Nope, totally agreed. Yeah, that pairing of two units is gas on the fire, 100%. But no, we do have another vision card also coming out as, I guess, a small segue here. It's technically one that you can get for free. This is one of the new, of many, Veritas vision cards that are coming out. You can get this by exchanging the medals that you typically would have exchanged up to this point for the vision card related to. They've been pairing the Veritas units on here, and I think the trend so far, they've been pairing them by like game mode of how you acquire and level them up. And so, for instance, Water Veritas and Ice Veritas are both acquired via Arena, and so they're both featured on this vision card. They both have the overlap on this vision card. This is Bow and Gun, which, thank you, Gumi, for finally putting Bow and Gun on the same card. Thank you, thank you, thank you. But Katana and Staff Devout, and Katana are another innately great synergy that already exists. And this is a area res oriented card, admittedly on the lower side with the 16% area res, but the 30% HP does still add some significant bulk. The crit rate certainly great for all of these classes. A little bit lower overall, I think, numerically for some of the effects. 5% unit res is a little bit lower than the average bestowed ability, but it's balanced statistically that it's equal attack and magic stats, so you're not taking a huge hit depending upon who you're putting it on. Just without even analyzing the card, I love that they're doing this, that they're continuing to build out the Veritas units, because not pictured on here, I'll come back to this, I'll let you give some thoughts first, but they've given some special bestowed abilities for the Veritas units in particular, so I like that they're still like vertically investing a little bit into the potential power of these units. But yeah, this vision card, have you given it a look at all?
I have. I like this one quite a bit because it's very nice for obviously the ice and water teams in particular, and also just the gun team. You think about like Jaden and Yuna and kind of pairing them with Exia, that's already been, something that people have toyed around with. This makes it a little bit nicer. You can even use Water Veritas, instead if maybe you didn't build Exia. And this card is going to be especially good for Water Veritas because of those limited bestows that you mentioned. But yeah, why don't we talk about those now? But
Yeah.
yeah, Water Veritas, she's going to get 20% magic, 20% area resist penetration. Super, super nice. Ice Veritas, 20% attack, 20% unit res pen. And that really is nice for him too, because he already has a unit resist shred of 60%. So he can and then, ignore another 20% of what's left.
Absolutely.
Um,
Yeah, those are two great like new gen penetrations. And technically, I think Water Veritas just got her MA2, and I think they actually gave her more AoE res pen, which is an area oriented character. So I do like that they're giving her the proper kind of penetration that she needs. This card obviously being part of it, but they do technically also have another bestowed, and this is not just for Water and Ice Veritas, but all Veritas units. That being said, I don't know the applications of how you might use all Veritas units, but if this is on a Veritas unit, you get 10% fire and wind resistance, just flat as well. So for some of those matchups where you're using your water or ice or really any Veritas unit, it's not just confined to those two elements. If you look into here, Bolt Veritas is technically on here. Anyone else? Is it just Bolt?
Light Veritas is on there too.
Light Veritas, they would get 10% fire and wind resistance automatically. So
I
I
love that.
don't think it's like enormous, but that certainly is like really helpful, particularly for the meta we're seeing of like fire and wind. Yeah,
I mean, I was just about to say the same thing. That has been obviously, Seth and Shrek, or now, Gilgamesh and Shrek maybe, or whatever. But that has been a popular pairing and continues to be in the meta. So that'll be pretty helpful, I think.
I agree. I agree. No other real thoughts for me from this card though. Again, I don't know if it's a strong contender for me to use 100% of the time because again, it's a little bit lower on the area res, which we just talked about admittedly, is getting more penetrated more easily, so the actual value of this a little bit lower, but still I like it for the fact that it conjoins a couple classes. That to me is really the biggest takeaway, that gun and bow now have like a really good main slot vision card to potentially leverage. Um, yeah, I'm interested.
It is nice that you can pull in that 30% HP into the main slot though, potentially.
Yes.
Um, I do like that. That is one of the reasons why that Sottily Exia team has been super strong, getting HP in primary and secondary slots.
Totally. And although you might make the argument, well, yeah, but these are gun units, they typically skew a little bit lower for base HP, so how good is it really? But on the other hand, there are some times where I look at the health pool of these units and I'm like, man, 10,000 HP, that looks pretty low. Like 11,000 HP, or even the difference between them, between like a damage threshold of getting like max damage capped and killed or not. I know there's been a couple times for Yuna where like if she takes max damage and she's below 11 or 12,000 HP, you automatically proc re-raise. But now all of a sudden, if this 30% HP, even though it's not enormous, if that's a new breakpoint where she can like get above a certain damage threshold, and now she doesn't immediately just die and use her re-raise after one hit, that actually does matter. There's some trickle down effects to that.
Definitely.
Yep. But no, we'll keep moving along here. We do have some other news about Lunar New Year, which is a little bit different this year. We historically have gotten a global exclusive unit. It was More the Merrier, then it was Resnick the Hoppy, and then Oberon the Auspicious. And admittedly, not the greatest units of all time. Actually, ironically, those two of those units are on our biggest flops of the year when we do our year in review. So
The dubious honor.
yeah, so maybe it's a good thing we're not getting. That's a seeming confirmation that we're not getting a unit this year, which I think some people were thinking about, but admittedly, I was low hopes for it. I think all part of Road to Worldwide, they made it abundantly clear we were not getting global exclusive units like we had in the past, and I think Joom. I think there was something about Joom's release where they were like, okay, now it's official, go live. We're now fully in sync, and so I did not expect a new Lunar New Year unit, but I appreciate that they're still giving upgrades to us. That alone means that there's someone thinking about global and not just porting everything to JP.
Yep. Yeah, so I mean, I think like in terms of upgrades, Oberon is going to be getting the triple play MA2, MA3 limit burst upgrade. So potentially a significant boost to his power, getting 3 different upgrades. The older couple of units are just going to be getting their MA3s because they've already had their other upgrades in previous years. But I mean, we've talked about Oberon in the past. I think we've pretty much had him in danger of maybe even falling off our tier list if he's even still on there. I
Yeah,
can't remember if
yeah.
he's still on there,
I don't remember.
but we had a lot of copium for this unit when he came out. That seemed like the timing was right with Dario, and Sephiroth was around the corner a couple months later, and this guy just didn't really do anything.
Nope.
So he's got a long ways to go. I think that if you think about maybe a magic meta coming in with ExDeath and Shrek, it seems like maybe there could be some potential for him because he is kind of that anti-magic unit. But it just depends on the level of upgrades that they decide to give him, which has been really hit or miss. If you think about like the global fest units that came around recently, those were kind of a swing and a miss, and some of these other global units that have got an upgrade really haven't been all that stellar.
No, agreed. And remember the timing of him when he came out. This was pre the power creep of like base stats and stats in general. So he already is a little bit behind the curve just to start. But even as I like kind of revisited his kit, I remember looking through this and even upon release, we weren't wowed, but it was fine. But now when I look at this teammate buff, I'm like, oh, 35% general? Okay, cool. 25 unit res? These are both 3 turns. Now, admittedly, I'm fairly confident that when they give him the MA3, which includes an ability upgrade, they're likely going to upgrade this teammate buff, and they'll probably get the 4 turn duration instead of the 3. They probably will add on 1, maybe 2 effects. And so I don't think it's the end of the world, but he does still have some, I don't want to call it uniqueness, but there is kind of this nice like decreased penetration, which we were just talking about, that they're going to get to these nasty levels of magic res pen potentially that he can counterplay that. Then again, they both have some kind of debuff weakening, at least ExDeath does. So maybe they don't take as much of the penetration reduction as they should because of the debuff weakening. And I even now like think of like the power or the influx of debuff weakening, that even this crush, even to start, 30% was lower than the average crush. When I think of, I'm sorry, this is a flat 30% AoE res. Never mind.
Yeah, just
Still,
in peril.
but still, I think of like 30%. That's obviously, we're used to like the 38%. That this already was like a lower kind of resistance that they're going to have to do some special stuff with the MA2 and the MA3. Yeah.
I think when I look at that Draconic Providence, that is the skill that I kind of honed in on also, that really needs multiple effects added into it. It needs to go to 4 turns, like you mentioned. It needs to go to a 50% barrier. It needs to add in, I think, an on-hit effect for an on-hit debuff for maybe another 20% slash and magic res penetration debuff.
Yep.
So then he could do 50% of both. And maybe even one other effect, maybe on top of that. Does he have courage or re-raise? I think that was another.
So he has neither.
He has neither.
Neither.
So yeah, give him courage or re-raise on there also.
Yeah.
And then I think he's in a pretty decent spot.
I would totally agree with that. Yeah, that was one of the biggest problems with the bulk, was that although okay, he's got this HP heal back, well, so does an every unit now. This is no longer a premium, and even the damage absorbed, 30% is lower than even most of the units. We now see upwards of 50% damage absorbed. So while he was doing okay damage-wise, and yeah, he could take like a hit or two maybe, there were other times too where if he just died, it was over. There was no counterplay. Like there was no re-raise or courage or any kind of salvageability. You were just dead. Yeah.
Yeah, I think that like just kind of lean into the debuffer role for this and enhance the debuffs, and give him a little bit of the bulk that he's missing, and improve that buff, and maybe he's like usable as a niche character. But I don't have like super high hopes for it. The limit burst is also going to be getting upgraded, which is another diamond for him. It's a guaranteed hit.
Yep.
This needs to go down to 43 AP.
At least. Oh my god, yeah.
Maybe add in like a physical magical damage reduction of 15% debuff, kind of again leading into the debuffing role. Maybe that would be kind of a nice thing to do.
Yeah, I agree. And I won't talk anymore because we are going to revisit this unit in just a little bit in one of our questions, but he's at least getting the majority of the upgrades. I will be curious to see, do they just give him some stuff just for the sake of it? It would be nice. Yeah.
The other kind of tough thing about these units is that we have such little access to their shards just because they're not available unless they're running the events, that it's really difficult or just very expensive to kind of get them any sort of reincarnations.
Correct, right. Which, when you talk about super competitive play, that is obviously, it has to be a factor, and even I think more so than ever in an evade potential meta, where we've noticed even with the missile units that the reincarnation stats of the luck, of the accuracy, all of those things are really important for like bridging the gap between evade rates, and even when it comes to pseudo evade teams that we see with Sephiroth and Shreka with the luck percent vision cards, that to me is where I noticed the reincarnations. Whereas maybe a year or two ago when evasion really wasn't as much of a threat, you were really just looking at like attack stats and HP, which still mattered, but I don't think it now all of a sudden there's more factors increasing the gap between units.
Yeah,
Yep.
agreed.
But no, we do have a couple of other upgrades here. One of them is actually LightningAstrius getting a limit break upgrade. He had recently gotten an MA2, which, you know, it could be worse, could be better. I've seen some people play with him. I haven't heard anything good yet, but people have at least given him a spin. This limit break upgrade is getting the AP reduction. It's still retaining a couple of these things. Obviously, the barrier break is there, the follow up attack is there, but now they're getting a reduction of Protect 2.0. I'm sorry, removal of the Protect 2.0, which is the reduction of physical damage. He's still retaining the poison effect. Nothing about that's changing, but it's a decreased debuff weakening of 30% post hit. It's still a single target ability, range height 1, range of 4. I don't, uh, no, I'm not impressed. It's okay. Okay. Like, this certainly is nice, but again, it's only one time use on one unit only. And I feel like this is so weird that it's decreased debuff weakening after. I would have loved for this to be pre-damage. Not that it would have mattered, for him in particular, but
Yeah, there's no debuffs
right.
on the attack, so
Yeah, I don't
there
know.
is one other hidden upgrade here with the
Ooh.
actual follow-up getting the unit res penetration added into it.
Oh, so that's where you would want the debuff weakening pre-hit, right? Because you would
Well,
want
no,
the.
that's straight penetration on that. It's not a
Oh,
shred.
thank you. Yep.
So I don't know like what the debuff weakening like angle is for it. I can't remember. Like I guess he has like a shred in his kit, right? On his job 25.
Oops. Yes, he was one of the first units that had the shred. This was big for him. Yeah.
Right, right. So that kind of helps that because that's a little bit more of a short range ability, and I guess it kind of maybe helps the team if you have a debuffer or something. I do like that giving him the unit res penetration. Is it? I can't remember. Is it just for that attack or is it a 3 turn
Just that cat. So same as
just for that
same as
cast?
Gilgamesh, same concept.
Yeah,
Which has done a
that's
lot of
pretty
damage.
nice.
It's pretty. Yeah. I just know. I just am always super jaded by these single target attacks that unless it's something really oppressive for that one unit, I'm kind of hit or miss on how like oppressive it really is. Like, I look at limit breaks like Riku's, which is a select two, like, berserk chance, or someone like Garusa with that big disable. Like, there's some that really, even Dario. When I'm thinking of like single target ones as opposed to like some of these multi target, Dario the tank, it's like that massive 67% chance to berserk. Like, that's like a game changing single target hit. I don't know if I get this one from this one, which maybe I'm underrating it, but it's not an
I
increased
guess.
modifier. Like,
Yeah, I guess the thing that I like about this is that the follow up is unless you have somebody removing it, it is retained for 3 turns. So the follow up attack getting upgraded as part of this is nice because then if he follows up with an AoE attack on the next hit, that's gonna hit everybody there with the follow up.
I like that angle. You're right.
It's not blowing me away, but I do think it's above average. I would say getting the physical reduction, like this attack can probably blow somebody up with getting rid of the barrier, the reduction, also getting the poison on there if you don't manage to kill them on that one swing. Um, and I think the MA2 was above average. The problem
Yeah.
is really just the stat gap. I think where these units that are kind of pre next gen are just going to be not just going to be like a rung below anything that we're looking at now, purely just based on the 20 to 30% stack gap.
Agreed. Well, and I know for him too, it's also like an AI thing where this teammate buff is a repetitive teammate
Mm,
buff. So that's always one small handcuff in the team building where like he's either got to be the center unit. If he is, he's going to be the slowest. There were times we had to run bow tie because his range was too far because this ability. And like there's some like wonky stuff with the AI that I think is still making him more complex. That when you add up all the
definitely.
negatives, doesn't outweigh the positives.
Yeah, I definitely remember those days, like back when we were using them against Oldoa, and yeah, it was kind of a nightmare.
Yeah. Yep. So, oh well. You know, it could be worse. If you like this unit, it could be worse upgrades. Could be a brain limit break.
Yeah.
But no, a couple other things here for upgrades. Veritas of the Light, who a lot of us have had online, kind of waiting for these next upgrades, is getting both the limit break and the weapon, which will finalize their build. Right now, you've been able to max reincarnate them technically by by the free match mode as well as what you might have gotten from the barracks. And their limit break upgrade is the reduction of AoE wide res of both physical and magical. I like that it is both kinds. Nice to see the 240% mod. It is a guaranteed hit, which is nice because they're not known for their accuracy. In fact, it's rather, we'll say average to below average. But it's also the 20% magical reduction of what the enemies you hit will do. So if they'll just do 20% less damage for those 3 turns. This probably isn't what I was expecting if I was thinking about like what kind of limit break do I want this unit to have. But I actually don't mind this. I actually like that they can open up the fight with a kind of that guaranteed hit. You have some removal of both kinds. Now again, like Yuna is obviously more single target oriented, and Jaden is not as like diamond heavy. Whereas this Veritas unit is very diamond heavy, so it is a good like buff for their personal damage per se. But they are kind of known a little bit for their skew of anti magic, where they do have the magic barrier, I believe. Yeah, 50% magic barrier, and then was there something else? I thought there was something else. Oh yeah, reduce magical damage 20%. The fact that you can now combine this with a reduction of the enemy damage of 20% does help their survivability a fair bit in some of those matchups where we've noticed in those magic matchups, these stand up a little bit longer than I thought we thought for a gunner.
Yeah, I've been using this unit quite a bit as of late with pairing with Thancred,
Yes.
and I've been very impressed with her. Like, really, the only thing that I've really needed to worry about is the accuracy and then like the physical sort of damage mitigations. Aside from that, I think she's like her damage is good, like the utility is pretty nice, the buffs are good. And then adding in this limit burst, I think, makes the magical survivability top notch. So I've liked playing around with this unit quite a bit. The timing is good with Yuna and like the light element getting stronger. The tie-in with the great sword and some of the vision cards that have come through. So I think it's been, for folks that haven't tried her out yet, I would definitely recommend it. I think that she'll surprise you with how strong she is.
I agree. Yeah, and it's not even just the damage. There are some supportive like aspects to this too, like this one ability in particular that you'll dispel all debuffs after which attack is it? I think yeah, it's their large diamond attack. That this is a cleanse of a healing power down. That's a cleanse of an imperil that someone took. That's a cleanse of a crush, whatever it may be. The fact that every single ability, someone, and sometimes it's on herself, that you can just cleanse that. I have not seen the dispel of the status effects quite as often yet, but these are still 3 pretty prevalent status elements. The fact that you can like I don't know, for free, just dispel one of them is kind of nice. Um, and I've not played a ton of it, but I still like too that they have this heal ability. That when you talk about an inaccurate unit, if there's that chance where someone's uh, of 80 for them, or perhaps a gun line of sight. We've talked about this. There's some limitations if they can hit certain units that you can just like pause and heal. Not the worst. I mean, not amazing. She's obviously not a healer, but it's nice that it's there.
Yeah, I've seen the heal come in clutch multiple times, like when I've been using her. I do wish that the sequential ability with the debuff dispel, I wish it was like a full Asuna.
Yes.
And that then it would have been like a home run for me.
Yes.
Maybe it would have been too powerful, but I just wish that we had more units that could deal with curse because there's just not nearly enough of them, and I think this would have been a nice addition to that.
Couldn't agree more. Absolutely. But the other big upgrade quotes is the weapon. Obviously, magic oriented weapon. Love the accuracy stat on this. Certainly nice to throw that in there because we've talked about this. These Veritas units typically rely on their uh, accessory, the crystal globe or whatever, which has been one of the bigger downfalls of the Veritas units. That because you're kind of beholden to using that accessory, they're pretty much tapped for what you can do for their accessory because you're not able to equip something like the Alex ring or the white marshmallow, whatever it may be. The fact that at least you can kind of go for this 22%, it's not going to solve all your problems, but like it's nice that it's there. The rest of the abilities itself, again, we've always had questions about the range of this unit. Not a lot of range, and particularly for a gun unit, that can be a little worrisome where they don't get the like trajectory advantage that some of the bow units get. And the Bolt Veritas actually set the precedent that the Bolt Veritas weapon did have a range extension. So I know I was kind of like looking out to see if they did that here, and they didn't. I don't think this is an awful weapon, though. I mean, I think it's debatable whether I would use this or the death penalty, which is the reliquary weapon. I think that one has a really compelling argument to be made, too. But it's nice that you have an element of physical damage reduction here, where that's not something they're known for. The reaction block, it's okay. I know gun doesn't typically have a huge problem with the reaction block, and um, it's around on the vision card, so I don't know how like OP this is for gun. The human killer you get for free because that's not something you can get on a trust don't passive. So it's nice that you kind of get that little amplification. But more so than anything, I like this because of the fact that they use a magic attack here. That it's kind of like a nice extra modifier of the 15 human killer. Whereas if you're going for like missile attack up or light attack up, this is a typeless type damage. So that 15 modifier is on obviously like this magic oriented type attack, this missile attack, this typeless attack. I thought that was a smart way to get the damage in there.
I think so too, and there's no overlap. I think they're obviously keeping the Veritas crystal accessory in mind when they're building these weapons too, and trying not to have any common overlap there. Um, in terms of a weapon, right now I've actually mostly been using the Peacekeeper on her, which it gives like some
Yeah.
higher defense, higher spirit penetration and reaction block, and it actually has like a nice aim build for the 29 accuracy. So I think this has probably been her best weapon right now. Um, but this one, I think it's a little bit of an accuracy drop, but I think being able to patch the physical weakness with that 10% reduction is a nice perk. So I can see myself using that instead.
I completely forgot about this because this is Elia's weapon. I like kind of forgot that they had Spirit Pen on here because it was never really applicable to this point. Most of the gun units that you were using this on were physical attack oriented.
Yeah.
But technically, I would imagine that the Spirit Pen of 20 would probably be roughly equivalent to the Human Killer 15 when you're applying it to all those different kinds of attacks because all of her attacks are magic oriented. So all of them are going to scale off enemy spirit. Yeah.
And the interesting thing about that Peacemaker weapon is it does have a strong magic stat on the aim build as well. So, um, yeah, good choice for folks that are looking for a weapon for now.
I'm glad you mentioned that. Good stuff. Good stuff. All right. Well, that's actually most of the content lineup that we were going to talk through in terms of what's coming this week. We did. I don't have a graphic for this, but the Mindsphere update in JP. I know you kind of did analysis. The long and short of it, guys, is that there's been a new reward given out in JP as part of like a monthly goal of spending Vizior. That if you spend Viz, you get a certain amount of Rainbow Mind Spheres as a reward for doing so. It's brand new. It's not made a full run of the cycle, so there's still some things to understand. But do you have any details off the top of your head about that still, or?
Yeah, let me grab the graphic real quick so we can bring it up in I'll send it in a message. Hold on.
Yeah, thank you. Yeah, the at least my
There,
remembrance of
it's
the
in,
takeaway, you have to spend an exorbitant amount of Visior to get the benefit of this, but like it's nice that there's like a kickback of sorts. Yeah, here we go.
yeah. So this is basically debuted in JP in January. So like they're just coming up on, you can see there's 3 days left on this cycle for them. I don't know. I'm not positive if this is a recurring thing or if it was something special they did for January. I'm guessing that this is going to be a new recurring thing, and hopefully we see this in February. But essentially, there's some kind of more mundane goodies there, as for 2,000, 4,000, 8,000 Visior spent in the month. As you start getting down into like 10,000 or above, the rewards start getting a little bit better. And then can see like once you get over like 50,000, the rewards start getting very nice for like reincarnations. But if you think about like 60,000 Visior, that's pitying a unit and pitying a VC, which is often happening. If you're over the course of a month of pulling. So um, you know getting up to like the 100,000 plus, that's pretty difficult unless you're like a mega whale. But I can see most people maybe hitting anywhere between like 40 to 50,000 if it's a big pull month for them.
Yeah. No, I mean I like this. Obviously, this favors spenders where your average player is obviously not getting login rewards equivalent to spending 60,000 viz a month. You just don't get that much Visior. But for people that are spending to be able to get some of these items that really only benefit the reincarnators, the type of people to reincarnate, it aligns nicely to like reward them for pulling on a unit and spending the money to get the viz and whatnot. Obviously, it's gonna like further extend the gap between pay to win and not pay to win, but I think that bridge has already been blown to smithereens. I don't think this is a significant advantage compared to what already exists between like what a high spender has in their account versus like someone who doesn't, someone who's new versus someone who's got a veteran account. I think obviously at this point in PvP, I think talking about like fairness is we're far past that. So the fact that now if you've already
Water
like
under the bridge.
yeah, water under the bridge, if you're someone who's actively like acquiring Visior and buying your pack H's and using them every month, the fact that they're giving you these kinds of materials to help you get the most out of those characters that you've spent so much on, I think is a good thing. You kind of get a little extra juice to making them work at a high level.
Yeah, that's why I was trying to point out like the 60,000 perk, which I think is more realistic for the general player. And because like that's one unit, one VC over the like. So say I'm really looking forward to Mont here. I'm gonna pull Mont and I'm gonna pull his VC. Maybe I try to go for ExDeath as well. Like maybe I've really been saving for these two units. If I spend 60,000, pulling those units, I'm getting an extra 200 transcendent mind spheres, an extra, what is it, like 400 or 500 or
Yeah,
600
600.
scrolls, and then a couple other smaller goodies in there too. So I think that's pretty nice, just as a free add-on.
Yeah, and there's a good comment here. WBL brought it up. Oh, what's up, dude? Is it me or would it have been more beneficial for them to encourage all players to put money into the game by putting good prizes earlier? I mean, I think I actually don't know if these are awful prizes earlier. I mean, I know for one, like sure, the upwards of the 10k viz, these first four are kind of whatever. That being said, I know a lot of people are like starving for rainbow balls still apparently. So like it's better than
Yeah,
nothing.
it's
But
still, I think for free to play, that's still like a roadblock. So
right.
that's pretty 8,000 Visier. I think a lot of people might hit that like almost every month.
Absolutely. And even when you get toward like let's say the 12 to 20, you do still get some of these free temples. But even these rainbow mind spheres, although we do think of these for the reincarnation perspective, you can use these from taking a unit from level 120 to level 140, I believe. Or am I misremembering
Yeah.
that? Yeah, you can. Thank you. So even for spending something like 15 to 20,000, or maybe 30,000, or yeah, to get these 20 rainbow spheres, or if you do hit the 40,000 pity a unit because it is pity to get the 80 of these, that's basically 100 shards of any unit of your choice to get them from 120 to 140. So even for some of those like lighter spenders, that it's still valuable, I think, or still useful.
Considering this is something we didn't have before, and it's, I think this is nice. I'm glad that they're adding in more perks like this to the game to continually to gradually make it easier and more accessible to reincarnate for everyone.
Yeah. No, and honestly, the thing with the tickets, like I see Cecil brings up, like they should have added more tickets. I don't think that changes anything because how can I say this? They have done so many times in this game, like a free 10 pull, and some of the times, like a one UR guaranteed. And there's so many more people that are like upset with that than are happy with that. Where they're like, "Oh, great, I got a Earth ketone. Woo, thanks, Goomy." Like I think the rainbow ticket of the one UR guaranteed pull, obviously, like it's exciting, and you still hope you get a unit you've never pulled before. But I still feel like that a lot of people are unappreciative of that because they quite so often get something that's like old and still useless, despite the fact that it's technically a UR unit. Like, oh, thanks, I pulled the Ifrit vision card. Like that's great. Like no, like that's still totally possible, even if they gave out a bunch of them.
I don't know. I still think that people kind of underrate the value of getting, even if it is something you pulled before, like getting 40 currency for your mog shops, or, you know, in addition to that, you could maybe trade those spheres in for transcendent mind spheres. So I don't know. I think that there's still value regardless, if you pull something new or not.
Yeah. And then I'm sorry if I misunderstood. If you meant a selector ticket, then give me the copium you have because this is literally them
Those aren't
offering.
selectors.
Those are not
Those,
selectors, and that would be in a
yeah.
a huge, like, I don't want to call it like egregious, like misappropriation of, like, that's a huge value for something like pretty cheap. I think that's like disproportionately too good to be true.
Yeah.
That's like asking them to double our login rewards. Like, yeah, that'd be great. Like, let's. I don't know if that's realistic. But it's still, nonetheless, it's free. But I think that's everything to say about it. Looking forward to see what it does, if it's a recurring thing, one time only. Yeah, who knows? But either way, nice to get something new. But that does bring us to our hot take section. It means we're getting toward the end of it here. We got some fun hot takes, I think, for everybody. The first one here. So let me get this popped up on screen for us. And again, unfortunately, I don't know why. Oh, here we go. None. There we go. Hot take number one. ExDeath is what Golbez should have been. Final Fantasy IV unit, kind of a dark unit, a lot of similarities. They obviously look kind of similar with the armor as well. This was one that you had suggested. Do you want to take this one first, or?
So I think this one is a cold take. This is just objectively true. Golbez is, much to my chagrin, he was like the ultimate disappointment. That was like a unit that has so many fans. He's like one of the all-time villains in Final Fantasy, and it was just one of the biggest swings and a miss of all time because we were entrenched in a light meta at the time. We were looking for units to counter Elena and Jaden and company, and he just got blown off the map. He was one of the most inaccurate units. Couldn't do anything against Elena, so he just died immediately.
He wasn't even bulky, like he was supposed to be, and he wasn't even regardless of the light out like meta. We would use him against a variety of things because he was one of those units that like had like the decrease of enemy defense pen, which looked shiny at the time, but never really found its footing. And yeah, there was definitely a cold take. I would agree. I don't think I have anything to add. This is absolutely correct.
One of the coldest takes we've ever seen.
It is, but we do have I think, another good one here. That the second hot take, 42% magic res pen, is a step too far in power creep. Do you think it's a hot take, or is that true?
It's pretty close for me. Like I think that this is pretty extreme. Because we saw like the power jump just from like Sottily getting 28% on the Exia vision card, and that was pretty substantial. I'm pretty worried about Shrek, like considering what she already does, and just doubling her magic res penetration is insane to me. Because like a lot of units, like you have like 30% magic res, or you have 40%, maybe even higher, and that is like, it doesn't seem like it might be doing a lot, but it's reducing her damage by 15 to 20%, or higher depending on how much you have. So just that's just negated. It's gone. Like you don't have any.
Right.
Like units like Joom, like where were able to maybe perform against Shrek in the past. She's not going to be nearly as good now, even with her debuff. Her debuff is essentially gone now, so it's whatever she has innately is, what she has. So I'm a little bit worried, but like the glass half full for me is that they have been adding in other debuffs to kind of offset it a little bit, like the unit res pen debuff has been getting a little bit more accessible on some units. So I think that is what's going to salvage it, but I just don't think we have enough options for it quite yet.
Okay, I like it. I got something prepared for you guys because I thought this was such a cool hot take. I wanted to do some research. I don't think this is a step too far in power creep. I think this is fine for power creep, but it's because this is worded a very specific way. So let me go ahead, and I obviously had to prepare a spreadsheet for everybody here. Go figure. What I wanted to do was look at what exists for penetration already, because to me, I look at this and obviously think like slash type damage. Slash already's penetrated out the wazoo. Is this really a big difference? And so one of the first things I wanted to do was look at, actually, I'm sorry, before I dive into this, talk about the wording. I don't think 42% is too far of the power creep. I think 42% with everything else on this vision card is too far a step with the power creep. I think if this was a different kind of vision card, 42% as a number by itself, I think honestly I'm going to make the argument why I think that's fine. But everything else on here, I think it's the vision card that pushes the power creep. But I was looking at like what we have established already. And so for slash type penetrations, we do and again, I'm sorry guys, I only did jaw-based vision cards here. I do not have mono element. It's just too much hard. It's too hard. But for slash types, we only went up as high as 35% currently. We did have 4 of them in total. And technically we do have, now this will be the third magic res pen. So we were at 28. We never got a 35%er. We only had the 42% now. But one of the things I noticed is that of these slash penetration cards, almost every single slasher now has some kind of access to slash res pen. But at least this 42% is only limited to Staff Black Mage. The other ones obviously are Staff Devout and Glove, and technically, Glove at the moment can get to 45% if you combine the Roy Mustang in the subslot. Now, not everyone's doing that, and that's 2 vision cards to the price of 1. But the general idea was that at least right now this is only confined to Staff Red Mage, whereas all the other slash pen cards are kind of available to everyone. But one of the things that I also wanted to do was look at what the average resistance was of like some of the more recent units, and I went as far back as Water Veritas, figuring this is kind of like where they started to actively tune characters to have higher magic res for the Helena Limit Break in Peril. That was kind of like a hard minimum that you needed to have, 38%, because she would bring you negative otherwise. And just on average, slash res of all those units since Water Veritas, the average unit has 19% slash res compared to the 16% magic res. So you would think that this is an argument why you shouldn't have more magic res pen, because it's on average a little bit lower. You don't need it. You actually need it a little bit more for the slash res because it's on average a little bit higher. And then, even then, I went a step further. I was looking at what exists for resistances. How many slash res cards are there? How many magic res cards are there? And technically, this left side here, this is all of the different magic res cards. I'm sorry, I'm kind of jumping around, but like there's a lot of magic res cards here at the top. There's a total of 13 magic res cards. There's only 10 slash res cards. And 8 out of the 13 of the magic res are hollows. 4 out of the 10 of the slash are hollows. The idea being that on average, although they both, like, the total is about equal, there's more magic res available on vision cards than there is slash res, and most of them are hollows, which means they're like newer. So I think vision card wise, there's been more of an emphasis on magic res than slash res. But even more than that, I was looking at the espers. Like, what are the most often used espers? And this is totally subjective. I just picked like the top, like, 14 espers of what I think we use the most on average. And most of them skew to have magic res nodes. You really don't have as many that have slash res nodes. And even if you were to like drop off these bottom three, Chariot, Garuda, Sildra, you can clearly see that there's like a bias of magic res availability on the most often used espers. And the final thing, again, looking at the staff Black Mage, I was looking to see what they have for penetrations. It's to the point that we already called out. Golbez has none innately. He's only got the 30% on that one attack. Yes, Shreka, I think, is the outlier here. She has 40% on that main passive, but Aldoa has none in the kit. Helena does have 40% on the main passive, but she's kind of power crept. And Vivi has it, but only on a teammate buff for 3 turns. So it's dispellable and it fades sooner. So the long and short of it is, I don't know if there's enough units, number one, that this is broken. And two, I don't think this gets most of them into like top cancerous levels of penetration, considering that the game balance has like pretty widely handed out magic res for free. And so while there's probably more slash res pen options, like, I don't think this is broken because I think the game is tuned for like higher magic res levels. I planned that out a lot more distinctly in my head. Hopefully I communicated that properly, but I didn't think that number was a hot take. I feel like not going to break it. Shrek is going to be broken. That is like a fact. But the rest of the class I think is fine.
I think so too. I don't. Yeah, I think that there's enough tools that you can combat it, but this magic res has been one of the main ways that we have combated Shrek, over the basically, the last 6 months or whatever she's been out, and we're not going to be able to do that anymore. So things like spirit and unit resistance combined with a unit resistance debuffer is like what you're going to have to turn to.
Yeah.
Because there's really nothing else.
Yeah. But at least I think you can confidently say that it's really Shrek is the one that's like the broken level of potential power creep. I don't know if it actually does much for the rest of the staff Black Mage group in general, considering like where magic res has skewed within the game.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think it's Golbez with, if he gets his buff online, he's not far off from where Shrek is. So
also true,
but his damage isn't as explosive as hers.
Right. And at least that pairing, she has the Dispel Seal capability, so you're not going to be able to dispel his magic res pen. If anything, maybe you might look for those units that can half the buff efficacy, where like he'll only get 15% instead of 30%, but those units are kind of few and far between right now. Yeah. Yeah. Whew. All right. That was good one. Thank you. This next one here, kind of getting back to something we were talking about earlier. Oberon will be great after these incoming upgrades. You're getting an MA2, an MA3, a limit break. We saw what it did for Winter Wrath. They like really took a 70 cost unit and kind of like gave her some juice. Although we don't see her play it all that often, she's a 70 cost unit, so that could be part of it. Is this a hot take, or do you think this is true?
This is really hot for me. I take exception with the word great because I think that is what I think he could be good, right? We said that earlier. But it all depends on the whoever is doing the upgrades if they make him good or not. Great, I don't think it's going to happen because for one thing, he's too far off, and we already talked about like the stat gap, and there's other deficiencies too, like the lack of 4-turn buffs, and even the kit itself was really highly tuned and niche against just magic and slash resistance, and that's kind of where his debuffs are. So I think he could be good. I absolutely do not think he's ever going to be great.
I completely agree with that. Yeah, I intentionally put the word great in here because I thought if I used the word good, it'd be too easy. It'd be too cold of a take. No, I agree. I think there's a lot of deficiencies, and quite frankly, I've kind of given up at this point of them making a good Lunar New Year unit. And so the fact that they've never really made these units good incentivizes me to think that they're not going to give them good upgrades anyways. I know we actually didn't mind the Resnick the Hoppy upgrades. It's just that unit was so far behind. So maybe they do some adequate upgrades, but I know even just looking at some of these recent MA3s on some of these units, not all of these MA3s are slam dunks. The fact that this is a Lunar New Year unit that again, I don't think they really care about. I have low hopes. They would need to do some substantial upgrades. The limit break cost has to come way down. We talked about it. That teammate buff needs 2 to 3 more abilities on it. There needs to be, and then powerful abilities on it, and then even the ability upgrade. His 120 ability upgrade. That ability needs some good stuff on it, and I don't know if they'll give it to him. We'll see.
If I look at like the totality of the upgrades since Road to Worldwide for these global best or global exclusive units, by and large they have been misses, or maybe not misses but underwhelming. And I think purposely so, that they don't want to create like a hidden gem that's going to disrupt future metas that they're already planning with other units.
I agree.
And I think like that's lighter touch is what they're going in for purposely on these units. And we've seen it time and time again. So that's what I'm expecting. I mean, I have some hopes that we maybe could get some usability out of this unit, but you know, we'll see tomorrow.
Absolutely. And the next hot take here. For Gilgamesh, Pierce meta is incoming. We talked about some of the adoption rate at the top end of the game, that it's people seemingly are kind of adopting him, at least in a couple guilds. Maybe others will follow suit if they see the results. Is this a hot take, or do you think this is true? Is Pierce meta incoming? Or I can start if you want.
Yeah, why don't you start it off?
I think this is a hot take. I do not think Pierce meta is incoming. I think there's a huge adoption rate, but I don't actually think it's going to be meta. I think like we talked about this, he's going to be a super valuable tool that you can build for great, if you're talking about high level guild war, like offensive balance, like making sure you can make an accurate Gilgamesh or an anti-magic Gilgamesh. And I think he's a great value pull when we talk about like Mavia in the future. There's been a lot of ice play. So I think he's a valuable, like if we were doing our tier list right now, I think he would very comfortably be an A, but I don't think he would be an S tier unit. And if you're not an S tier unit, then that's not a meta. I think he's going to be a very valuable play. You're going to see him around, but I would not call it Pierce meta, particularly because Ramada is not a perfect unit either. We've talked about the deficiencies in that group where they don't have a general dispel. There's like a lack of certain kinds of barrier break. Even then, like who that third unit is, sure, Summer Resnick's a slam dunk, but we've played with a couple others. The Veritas of the Heavens is certainly good in many instances, but I don't think the Pierce units overall are at a level where you would actively need to be worrying about them. Yeah.
Yeah, Pierce is still kind of waiting for that S tier unit, and you know, like you said, Gilgamesh isn't it. You know, maybe it's going to be more whenever we get that unit. You know, we've seen the artwork for her in the game, but I don't think that it's going to be top meta right now. I agree, it is a good play. It's a good value play. It's a versatile play. You can build it different ways to beat different things, but it's not top of meta.
No, and we've always kind of like tried to define that word too, because it means something a little bit different for everyone. And really and truly, you're not actually playing meta unless you're like in the top of the game, whether that be top limited arena, top guild war, top quick pick and class match. So that word doesn't mean the same thing for everybody. But to us, like I know meta tends to be the thing that there's like trickle down effects that you have to like build for and anticipate. And I just don't think that that's that level of oppressiveness where we're going to be altering our build strategies because of Gilgamesh. Yeah. Or Ramada, for that fact, either. And this is the last hot take. I'm going to bring up votive stats for this. Thancred is still being slept on. He was one of the bonus units in Limited Arena this week. And admittedly, I do think his team building was a smidge more constrained because of what the bonus vision cards were as well. In addition to just the fact that like you had to pick and choose how you could build it, and obviously the map has some factors too. But we've had a hell of a lot of fun using Thancred and Howl with some damn good results. I just want to like highlight that real quick here. One second. So we're currently rank 5. We've been using Thancred in what 16 teams or so, and on a daily basis, yeah, we're averaging 2 defends on a handful of these, 1.8 on a couple of other iterations. We're doing both. Both teams have variety in that one is a Seafer team, one is a Cloud team. Both of them use Summer Resnick, but we have had some with White Lotus Fina, which hasn't performed as well, but it's still not awful. But even the day before, like averaging 2 defends, both of them here. Day before that, still averaging more than 2 defends. And so we've had some great success with this unit. I think we were ranked 6 this time. Yeah, yeah, yeah. And so much so that they, Ashura, actually after we played them, I think, or after Steel Wings had played us, one or the other, they had adopted Thancred and made it like a Thancred wall of sorts. They had like 17 of them in top end Guild War. So they actually had taken, I think, what you'd put together with Cypher and him and virtually either made it their own or just straight up copied it. But there has not been an adoption rate outside of that. And I'm going to just real quickly flash to top 10. But I'm going to go further than that in a second. I think he came out the 8th. Right now on offense, he's still at a 4% pick rate. That is...
Oh, I don't...
Oh.
Can people see what you're... I don't know if people can see what you're doing.
Oh, son of a bitch. Thank you. Oh, my God. I'm so sorry, guys. Oh, my God. Thank you. That's okay. Oh, my God. This whole time I was talking. God damn it, you guys. Hold on. Let me not rob you of this. Let me actually, hold on. So this is what I was talking about here. Right here on the bottom right is the defensive teams. So you can see the average number of defenses here next to the shield. So we've got 14 to 16. And yeah, if you go back every single day, we're averaging 2 defenses a day on average on most of them. It's a very stout defensive choice. And yeah, I won't do the Shura chart because it won't tell you much. But on offense right now, 4% pick rate in the top 10 is exceptionally low when you think of like what someone like, I don't know, even Rico Venera came out at 10% and they were not nearly as like...
And that's probably just us. Like there's maybe another 1 or 2 random people, but I think that's mostly how...
Probably. Actually, we can tell. We can... Yeah, 5 of them are us. So out of the 12, it's us. Again, a higher uptick on defense because Ashura did end up walling them quite a fair bit. But if you extend this outward, like the pick rate is still like nada. So all that being said, my God, I'm so long-winded. Thancred being slept on, is that a hot take or is this true?
I think that is true. Yeah, I think. I'm not sure why people aren't using him or trying him, but he's very good. He's very, very well-rounded. Especially against Magic, he does quite well. He does quite well into the Seth Shrek team. Does really well into Sodali Exia. Does really well into Gilgamesh Shrek.
He beats almost everything. There's very little.
Yeah. I mean, he'll lose to the Spear team, but like that team is just coming online.
Even then, not always. He's got enough Pierce Res innately that depending on what you're doing, yeah.
So yeah, I think people should be using him. Like this is a good unit, especially if you have a good light box. He's solid. Give him a spin.
Yeah. I mean, I will say I do think that he obviously is way better with Summer Resnick. Every team is better with Summer Resnick. So if
she's just the meta. Like she is ridiculous unit. Like
yeah.
I think that we talk about like the damage dealers a lot, like Shrek and Sephiroth. She's right there with them as one of the best units we've seen in the game.
She's enabled all of them: the barrier seal, the follow up removal, the aura of curse, blind, the crit evade that comes with it. It goes on and on and on. The heals, the CT up ability on the vision card, the magic shields for 2 hits. It's insane. It's insane. The full life or re-raise, whatever is like crazy. So yes, obviously she's a major factor to the success of the Thancred team. So if you're not running her, it is a little more. Maybe not good for 6 stars, but we got builds with Cloud and Yuna, and that's more than enough damage to take out a majority of enemies. And you can use all your good old fashioned mono light cards. I don't think we're using a ton of like the job based vision cards for those teams. A couple, but like
Yeah.
but it's an even blend of both, and he's really self sufficient. Really great unit. I agree with this.
Pretty good, like budget friendly team. So.
Yeah. Yep.
I know that he's hard to build for people who didn't have him built up from before, but we still have 8 days left of the Mog shop, so make sure that you get enough currency to continue to buy those tickets and finish him off.
Yep. But no, maybe we'll do a show off one of our teams at some point, just highlight what they look like because it's so good, it's so clean. Yeah, and again, it could be a matter of resources. Maybe people don't have Cypher, like that could be part of it too. Who knows? Yeah,
I think that's definitely one of his best combos thus far. But the Cloud one is also very good.
I love the Cloud one. It's again, yeah, versus the evade teams. But again, there's only like 5 units in the game right now that can really like deal with the evade teams. That's kind of they're the newest units. That's not surprising. Yeah. But no, that's everything we wanted to cover today. Should be a fun week ahead of us with Kefka or ExDeath. I keep getting them all these Final Fantasy villains. Kefka, ExDeath, Golbez. But yeah, ExDeath coming in. The Vision card in particular, I'm absolutely pulling that, and so shouldn't everybody here. And it'll be interesting to see them. We won't see them in Limited Guild War till next week. So if you pull them now, wait a little while. But yeah.
Yeah, there's not a huge reason to like pull him day one. So, if you are anticipating those new rewards for Viz spend, like you could maybe wait a couple days until February 1st rolls around, and assuming we do get that, pull ExDeath, a couple days later and take advantage of those new rewards.
Definitely. Real quick before we end, BG Maxi just asked in the chat: Thancred, Citra, Yuna, JB. You tell him, is that a good team?
It is good. I've used it quite extensively.
Yeah.
The card lines up pretty nicely with Thancred can use the Bloody Road Melnia card to get the agility, reaction block, unit res, and then you can use Thancred's vision card too for the new one, Legacies. Get the wide res and attack. So really good team. Give it a try in free match.
There you go. Technically 2 free units there. Well, you got to build them, but yeah, technically 2 free units there. But yeah, that's everything we got for today. So good luck pulling tomorrow for those of you that are. Thanks again for hanging out and chat with us. Always appreciate the questions. Hopefully we got to everything. And if we didn't, leave it in the comment afterward. We always try to circle back, see what we might have missed. But that's all we got for now. Thanks for joining us tonight, guys.